So I wanted to make this video for a few days, and I decided to go ahead and finally buckle down on it. Um, it's interesting to me that Antifa in Los Angeles felt compelled to go out and beat up soccer moms with cardboard signs at the Wii Spa in the name of protecting trans rights. But for some reason, there's no Antifa response to people actually trying to murder transgender people, and I have a funny feeling that I know why. But let's talk for a moment about where our priorities are. So, there's actually been consistently been violence against trans and gay people in MacArthur Park in Los Angeles. There's really no reason why Antifa couldn't have a presence there if they were really concerned, about trans rights. And if you remember from my previous video, Inside Antifa on Abolish the Police, they're trying to say that, we can abolish the police and that their anarchist communist collectives would be able to, prevent the cartels from moving in and taking over. But I have a feeling that's not going to work out quite the way they think it would. I mean, not that I actually believe it would ever happen anyway, but regardless, the reason it wouldn't happen is because nobody's going to go along with that insanity. But if Antifa was really big on trans rights, and they're willing to beat up people over it, why can't they go to MacArthur Park, and do what they do? That's the issue. So let's take a look at what's been going on in MacArthur Park. This article was printed back on October 16, 2020. A 25-year-old whom law enforcement officials say has gang ties was charged with multiple counts of attempted murder Friday in connection with stabbings of two transgender women in MacArthur Park in recent months, authorities say. Donovan Fonseca was charged with 3 counts of attempted murder in connection with attacks spanning from late August to early October, the latter of which sparked widespread outrage in the LGBTQ community. Fonseca will also face hate crime and gang enhancements. Fonseca. According to news release issued by the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, Fonseca is a member of MS-13, according to a law enforcement official with knowledge of the case who spoke on the condition of anonymity to speak candidly about the ongoing investigation. On October 4th, a 42-year-old woman was seated on a park bench around 9:30 p.m. when she was surrounded by 4 or 5 men who said something to the effect of, "We don't want gays in the park," according to LAPD officials. The victim, identified by local activists as Daniela Hernandez, suffered a stab wound to the throat, police said. Though gender identity and sexual orientation are completely different, LGBTQ rights activists say people who show hatred for one or the other often conflate the two. Fonseca was also charged with participating in the stabbing of a transgender woman in the park on August 21st, prosecutors said. Authorities say he also took part in an attack on the same victim on September 1st. Fonseca was scheduled to appear in downtown courtroom Friday afternoon. It was not immediately clear whether he had an attorney. Police arrested Fonseca late Wednesday night, and he was held in lieu of a $1 million bail, jail records show. Fonseca had also been arrested for carrying a dirk or dagger in early July, records show, but he was released after prosecutors had to decline a case against him because of an inadmissible search, according to Greg Risling, a spokesman for the district attorney's office. Los Angeles police officials declined to respond to questions about Fonseca's prior arrest. It was not clear whether other suspects are being sought in any of the attacks. Hernandez, who is expected to survive, immigrated to the U.S. from El Salvador 3 years ago, according to Bambi Salcedo, president and CEO of Trans Latina Coalition Advocacy Group. She had been working as a housekeeper and volunteered with the advocacy group to serve hot meals out of their Wilshire Boulevard offices. So, it says here, she came to this country running away from the violence she was experiencing in El Salvador, only to come to the United States to almost get killed. So, a trans person is sitting on a park bench and gets stabbed in the throat by MS-13. No, physical response from Antifa. And this isn't just, isolated to that time period, as it happened again in March of this year. MS-13 gang member charged in latest assault on transgender woman in MacArthur Park. A member of MS-13 charged this week with assaulting a transgender woman Thursday in MacArthur Park, the latest in a string of attacks allegedly committed by the gang against members of the LGBT community in the area, prosecutors said. Gabriel Orlana, was charged with one count of battery, likely to produce great bodily injury in connection with the attack, according to Deputy District Attorney Richard Sabalos. Yeah, that guy. Orlana and another suspect, who was yet to be arrested or charged, allegedly approached the victim, asked why she was there, and yelled derogatory remarks before knocking her to the ground and striking her repeatedly in the head and the torso. The woman was treated in an area hospital, required stitches. It was at least the fourth time a member of the gang had been linked to violence against transgender women in the park since August 2020. Last year, prosecutors filed 3 counts of attempted murder against MS-13 member Adunadin Fonseca. That's actually what we just read about. The point is that this is not isolated incidents. This is just how it is. If you're a trans person or LGBTQ person and you're in this park, it keeps happening in the same place. Again, Antifa could show up and try to handle this, but instead it's much safer to just attack soccer moms and, take a big loss when you tried to say that it was all a hoax and then come to find out it was actually a sex offender at the Wii Spa. But I already did a video about that. Anyway, now as far as like MS-13, they do this in El Salvador, where they come from, and that's just one of the cartel gangs that has made their way to this area, but it says El Salvador is a dangerous place to be a trans woman, but its most terrifying place is this coastal town called San Luis Talpa. There, trans women face humiliating intimidation from the police and outright contempt from the mayor, but their deadliest adversary is the Mara Salvatrucha 13, MS-13 gang, which banished them from the town, sowing terror with a campaign of murder and brutal attacks. Trans women there, we cannot take refuge from anyone. The police hate us, the mayor hates us, and the gang simply wants to kill us, said Nue, a survivor of gang attacks who was seeking asylum in Europe. She asked not to use her real name for fear of retaliation. While trans women face violence and harassment from across the country, nowhere has it been as vicious as in San Luis Talpa, a town of some 30,000 people. So basically, it's part of MS-13's, culture to go after the people in the LGBTQ community. And, I mean, this is Vice reporting this, so it's not like we're making this up. But, again, if this just kind of points to the fact that, first of all, Antifa could never just fill the role of the police if you abolished the police. And if they could, then you would see some action about this. But you won't, because there's no way in hell they're going to go to that park and do any of the things that they did on July 3rd, at the Wii Spa. And there's no way in hell they're going to do, basically take any kind of stand that might actually get them in trouble. Because at this point, despite all the bravado and pretending that they're effective in some way in violence, never mind the fact they've been getting their asses kicked lately in both Los Angeles and Portland, they're not organized. They don't really have any kind of ability to come to any kind of, logical consensus in real time, which is what's getting them, what's causing them to take the losses right now. And regardless of that, here's the hypocrisy that I'm pointing out. This has been consistently happening in the same place on a regular basis in Los Angeles, yet LA Antifa is nowhere to be found. And it's supposed to all be about fighting, authoritarians and, going after the fascists somehow. They relate that to, being anti-trans. Okay, well, if being anti-trans makes you a fascist and therefore you should be, people should be actively trying to resist and attack you, why don't you make your way over to MacArthur Park and let your presence be known that you're not going to tolerate people mistreating trans people? And you won't. Because, again, you're only effective if you outnumber your opponents about 10 to 1, and you tend to only attack people who are vulnerable. I mean, that's the reason why whenever you've met any kind of like organized or fearless resistance recently, you've just been turning your tails and running. So, anyway, thanks for tuning in, folks. I am seeking patrons now, as I put in my previous video about the future of E-Radio. If you guys get me, basically if I can get to 100 patrons, I could continue doing videos with the frequency and the level of research that you're accustomed to, and I'm actually working on some bigger projects to that effect right now. But it's going to take that, otherwise I will have to return to work with some serious physical limitations. I can still do it, but it occurred to me that I'd say, hey, if you want me to be able to continue doing what I've been doing this whole time, if all I need is 100 patrons, and I'm good. So if you can support V-Radio, it's just $10 a month, and I would certainly appreciate it. I'm not going to stop if I can't get that, but it would end up creating a situation where During the day I'd be at work, and then during the evening I'd be with my kids at their activities. Wouldn't really leave a lot of time for research. So there would be a hell of a lot less content, that's for sure. And I would also be in a scenario where I couldn't research it as heavily as I like to. So if you can support V Radio, check out our Patreon, which you can find at v-radio.us. I'll link it down below. But final note again, hey Antifa, if you're concerned about the people being basically violence or oppression of trans people, and their ability to go into nude spas and expose their penises, why aren't you doing anything about trans people being stabbed in the throat in your city? Thanks for tuning in.